All right, Jules, let's break down the situation of where he is, because the reality is there's a dearth of proven center forwards in Europe. I'm comfortable calling Osimhen proven because he's 24 years old. Yep. He's on his way up. He scored 31 goals last year across all competitions. He scored double-figure goals in the years before that. There just aren't a lot of players like that in Europe.
Yeah.
He earns right now about 4.5 million euros a season net, which, again, if you're one of those pounds a week type people, works out to round about 160,000 pounds a week plus bonuses. $10 million a year. I hate the fact that we have to do this, but we're a global podcast, right? So we got to do this.
Everybody needs to understand. Yeah.
Everybody agrees he's underpaid for what he's producing, because you go around Europe and you say, who's on his level in his age bracket, and there really aren't many people who've done it for multiple seasons in a Big Five league.
Yeah.
In fact, other than Erling Haaland, he may well be the only person in that age bracket under the age of 25, right? Well, Mbappe, but he's not really a traditional, if you want your traditional center forward, right? So the negotiations over his contract extension, and the reason you want to do this, as you mentioned, his contract expires 2025. A year from now, it's going to be a year away from free agency, which means that if Napoli want to transfer him elsewhere, his market value is just going to sink. So my understanding is they had reached an agreement whereby he would effectively double his wages, where he'd get into the 300,000 pounds a week range, if you like to think that way, $20 million a year. Which I think is pretty much in line with his production. That's why he deserves, right? And is a big stretch for Napoli.
Yeah.
Napoli say, like, if we're going to pay you that much money, or he says, okay, I'll sign the contract, we'll get multi-year extension, but I need to have a release clause.
Yeah.
So that, if Real Madrid, Manchester United come calling, and they make me an offer I can't refuse, you're not there saying, I want $500 million for him. I want to have the freedom, right? So let's come up with a number that's fair, that's equitable, and so on.
Because he often says that his dream was to play in the Premier League one day. He didn't mention a club in particular, but he said, England has always attracted him. So you would think that as good as Napoli have been with him, and he's been good to Napoli, there would be a point where he would want to discover something new.
He's already lived his two lifelong dreams of playing for Wolfsburg and Charleroi already.
Lille. And Lille as well, of course, in Ligue 1.
Well, I was mocking Wolfsburg and mocking Charleroi. I have more respect for Lille.
Oh, okay, that's good.
But that's understandable. That's pretty customary, right? We saw it with Erling Haaland as well when he went to Borussia Dortmund. The reason you put in a release clause is you as a player say, look, I have all this leverage. I am going to take a little bit less money than I could if I drove a hard bargain, if I ran my contract down.
Yeah.
You, in exchange, put in a release clause so that people know how to plan, so they don't have to negotiate with you, and then I'm free to go. And the release clause is typically a little bit less than what I would be worth.
Or market value, right? Yeah.
So they talked about release clauses. I think the club's idea was we'll make it 100 million. And bear in mind, too, Napoli paid 80 million to get him. So amortization, all this stuff, to make a clean profit, they have to get a big fee.
In a dodgy deal as well.
Which we'll get to in a minute. But then De Laurentiis sees, these guys in Saudi Arabia, they're offering a ton of money. So for players. So we'll make it 100 million for Europe, and then we'll make it more if it's Saudi or whatever. At some point, this broke down. They couldn't agree on a number. And this is why he has not yet signed his new deal. Inevitably, he's going to be linked with other clubs. Obviously, immediately Chelsea, but obviously Chelsea have got other fish to fry right now. We know Manchester United took a look at him last summer because Mark Ogden told us. They decided to go in a different direction. But where do you see Osimhen if he doesn't sign, if there's a year left on his deal? And De Laurentiis is also very unpredictable in Napoli. He's a canny operator.
Yeah.
But his level is any top team right now, right?
Yeah,
I'm not saying he'd put Haaland on the bench, but if Haaland weren't there, he'd probably start for Manchester City.
You would think so, definitely. And he's got a different profile to Erling Haaland or to Kylian Mbappe, for example, of course, or even to Harry Kane. But he's younger than Kane, as we've been saying. He's at an age where he can still improve on many aspects of his game. So no, you would think that he would be really like wanted by a lot of clubs, especially in England. And if it's 100 million that we're talking, I think for Victor Osimhen, this is a really good price. I think it's not a bargain, but this is a really good price. You're getting him for a really good value for what he's going to bring you and for how long he's going to bring you that. So I would see the appeal. I'm a bit surprised that Napoli, in a way, so this is going to play against them for sure in this negotiation, and in that kind of power struggle between the club and Osimhen and his agent, that would be in their favour. I'm still a bit surprised. Is this a bit like the Kvaratskhelia one, that we still like it's still not sorted. It's still taking a bit of time, and I know he's got technically still 2 years left on the contract, so there's not really any rush. Big clubs like that usually do those extensions around between the 2 years and the 18 months left on the contract, so they're on time. Still, they also knew that there was a lot of interest already last summer, and the closer you get to the final year of the contract, the more difficult it would be for them. We saw it with Leao.
Yeah.
And that was a hell of a negotiation for Milan. And in the end, it was good because he stayed, but it could have turned maybe very differently. So this is a tricky situation for them.
Interesting, Leao, of course, another former Lille player. Remember if players stayed at Lille forever? How good would Lille be?
The team, yeah. Even Hazard, Leao, and
exactly.
Osimhen up front. Wow.
So, now
what do you see happening? What really now? I know.
Again, I don't know Victor Osimhen. I do know in Naples he is probably. I mean, you could argue he's the best player that they've had, possibly since Diego Armando Maradona. I was trying to think in between. Obviously, they had Higuain and so on.
Yeah, Mertens.
Probably the best, most loved, or one of the most loved players, because you walk around Naples and in between the Diego Maradona murals, there are murals of Victor Osimhen.
Yeah.
He has really embraced the city. His personality, obviously, the guy's Nigerian. He's extroverted. It's a great fit with Naples. And I think there's two big signs to me which are really relevant. One is after this whole spitstorm breaks, Rudy Garcia asks him to start, or calls him up for the game against Udinese, which you mentioned in 1-4-1. He doesn't come up with a phantom injury. He's not like, oh no, my hip flexor, or no boss, I'm too upset. He's like, I'm a professional. I'm going to go. I think he also wanted to gauge the reactions. He shows up pitch side. There's a freaking standing ovation from the fans. And boos for poor Rudy Garcia.
Yeah, of course he got booed. Yeah.
The poor guy.
Six games in.
Can we be clear? Rudy Garcia does not run Napoli's TikTok account. Can we just...
He didn't know that was coming out.
Now, obviously, he scores that goal. And initially, he doesn't really celebrate.
No, not at all, yeah.
When Mario Rui comes and jumps on top of him, and then over the course of the game, you could see the adrenaline and so on. He became much more emotive. I think this reflects really well. If I'm a club looking at this, and they look at how did Victor Osimhen react in this moment, he reacted like an absolute professional, and I think that matters.